But see, that's the transition. That's the transition into talking about politics. It was Sunday, so you know we got to cover what went on the Sunday morning shows. Representative James Comer says austerity is coming.
Of Kentucky, who was a Kevin McCarthy backer on all 15 ballots, if you're keeping score at home. Congressman Comer, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Thanks for having me.
Let me start with the deal that was cut before we get to what your focus is going to be. Are you convinced that we can go the entire Congress without having a motion to vacate?
Well, I'm not convinced we can go the entire...
The question is how long does it take until we get the motion to vacate? And can Kevin McCarthy outlast this new head of lettuce? New head of lettuce starts today or tomorrow at 8 o'clock whenever they come back in. Can Kevin McCarthy outlast this head of lettuce?
Our Congress without having it, but I believe that if that's used, I believe that right now the overwhelming majority, and when I say overwhelming majority, 218 plus Republicans realize
Let us
that Kevin
pray.
McCarthy needs a chance to govern, and we're going to give him a chance. So I'm not going to say there won't be one person who tries to abuse that motion, but I'm confident that McCarthy's going to be able to be given the green light to govern and to lead this conference and do the things that we told the American people we were going to do during the midterm elections.
You know, the last time you were on, you said a similar thing. You worded it that way about Kevin McCarthy. Hey, I think you got to give him a chance. Many people interpreted that comment as not a robust endorsement of his speakership. It doesn't always sound like a robust endorsement, is it?
It is a robust endorsement. Look, I know that people are disappointed. A lot of Republicans, I represent an overwhelmingly Republican district that Trump won by nearly 50 points the first election when he got elected the first time.
No. When we went through this with Liz Truss a few months back, I had questions about what was the temperature in the room. You know, the lettuce is going to last longer in a room that's 55 degrees as opposed to a room that's, 68 degrees. The humidity in the room is also going to be a factor.
They constantly seem disappointed that Republicans aren't able to do the things that Republicans say they're going to do. Like, for example, vote for a term limits bill. That is overwhelmingly popular among conservative voters in America. Republicans always campaign for Congress in two things. They say we're going to pass a term limits bill and we're going to pass a balanced budget amendment. But yet those two votes are neither voted on. So I understand the frustration that a lot of new members, a lot of new conservatives have, and they drew a line in the sand on some of these bills that we always campaign on, but we never seem to vote on. And I'm confident Kevin has heard from.
His face is too small for his head, like Charlie Kirk, you say.
And I'm confident that we'll do it. Look, it's going to be a tough job. That's why nobody else.
Damn, that was perfect.
It is a tough job to get to 218, but I believe Kevin's the right guy, and I was proud to not only support him, I nominated him on the House floor for Speaker.
I'm curious, those two things you mentioned, those are show votes. They're not going to pass. They have no chance of passing. Some of them might need to be constitutional amendments, and you know how arduous that process is. What's the point of passing a bill
Come
on, man.
that basically you get to put a press release out on, but it doesn't get enacted?
A lot of times, as you know, Chuck, you have to take bills through numerous sessions of Congress before they finally become law. More and more candidates will run for the U.S. Senate and claim that they support term limits and they support...
Speaking of candidates running for the U.S. Senate, I didn't actually put it in because it didn't fit in with any of the stories, but I just want to point out that it looks like Katie Porter is going to be running for Dianne Feinstein's California Senate seat. So, just a bit of news on a possible Senate run, I think in 2024. Possibly.
For the balanced budget amendment, I think you have two coming into the Senate now from the House, Ted Budd and Markwayne Mullin, that would support that. They replace members of the Senate that probably wouldn't have voted for that.
Kelly, good evening. Lady B, good evening.
To make fundamental change in America. And I've always said from my first campaign for Congress to today that if we want to fundamentally change Congress, the two things that we can do today is pass a term limits bill and pass a balanced budget amendment. Because if there's not a balanced budget amendment, I don't have a lot of confidence that Congress is ever going to balance the budget.
I want to ask about the debt ceiling very quickly. Given the fact that in this new rules package, you're going to have separate votes on each appropriations package, isn't that the proper place to have a spending debate, not playing with the full faith and credit of the United States government?
Well, look, Congress has been broken. That's what John McCain said during the health care vote when he walked up and he gave a thumbs down. He said, we've got to get back to regular order. Regular order is to pass 12 different appropriations bills. And I think that we've got to have the debate whenever and wherever on the House floor to
Whenever.
Federal
Wherever.
debt. Who's going to pay for all this? And you mentioned in your monologue that
Didn't think you were going to hear Shakira on this stream, did you?
Dispute that. But here's the reason. Democrats unite around spending money. Whenever you have an unlimited amount
So
of
do
money,
Republicans.
every Democrat, any amount of money, any earmark, any new social program.
Brother, I hate to tell you, but in my lifetime, the Republicans have spent way more than the Democrats have. Especially the Democrats. The Democrats actually cut the deficit where the Republicans balloon the deficit every fucking time.
Get on board in the end. You look at the Republicans, we want to actually balance the budget, which means we're going to have to make spending cuts in every area of state government except Social Security and Medicare, and that's a lot tougher job. So it's going to be tougher for Republicans to get to 218, but I believe we will.
So I guess I go back to the debt limit. You think that is an appropriate place to use it, even though it has no chance of passing under that, using that configuration?
I think the American people need to see that there are people in Congress that are serious about the federal debt.
I don't think you're serious.
That's being passed to our children and grandchildren. It puts America further behind China in the long term. Our debt is one of the biggest challenges we face to national security. So I think that what
my dick is one of the biggest challenges we face to national security, sir.
And just to say we're going to have spending cuts, I've been in Congress 6 years. And I've yet to see any appropriations committee in either chamber make substantive spending cuts. We've got to get serious about it, and I think this is the proper path moving forward.
Let me ask you this: you're going to do
in my Pentagon
oversight. You're going to have
this is Representative James Comer
what you're doing, and they see
from Kentucky.
It looks more partisan.
I can say that since I'm from Kentucky.
Tell me how you're going to try to departisanize an investigation. Or do you expect it to be partisan?
Well, with all due respect, Chuck, I disagree with that. I think the only people that see this as a partisan investigation
Comer is a cunt.
The media and the hardcore Democrats. Look, at the same moment that the Democrats on the Ways and Means Committee released Donald Trump's taxes, they then, moments later, turned around and said Comer's investigation of the Biden family influence peddling is a revenge hearing. I mean, are you kidding me? Look, a Harvard poll just came out and said 65% of the Americans
joshing me, James?
that the contents of Hunter Biden's laptop should be investigated. But let me be clear. We're not investigating Hunter Biden. We're investigating Joe Biden. And I think any American who's kept up with the political process over the past two administrations would agree. We need to know.
He does look like a pencil eraser.
With respect to foreign adversarial intervention among family members of presidents of the United States. That's something that the Democrats complained about with Kushner, and certainly the Republicans, myself included, have complained about with Hunter Biden and Jim Biden, the president's son and brother. We've got to do something about it.
If you didn't like the way the Democrats did it, it sounds like you're going to do it in the same way that they did it. How is it any better?
No.
No.
I totally disagree with that. Adam Schiff always overpromised and underdelivered. He said just last week, the releasing Trump's tax returns was going to be a bombshell. I mean, there's no bombshell there. There's nothing there. Anyway, I've served.
He didn't pay fucking anything. He's not a billionaire at all. Like, I mean, I guess it depends on what your definition of bombshell is.
Served on a bank board for over a decade. There's never been a developer that's paid a lot of federal income tax because of depreciation and tax credits and things like that. If the Democrats want to make people like Donald Trump pay taxes, they need to change the tax code, not the tax rate, the tax code.
Yes, into it.
Everything that we have requested, we have evidence to back up. There are emails and text messages that show Hunter Biden complaining about having to spend so much money keeping his dad up. I mean, that's a concern because Hunter Biden's only source of income were from our adversaries in China and Russia for influence peddling. So this is something that we should look into. This isn't political. We want to
get worked up.
The president truthful when he said he didn't have any knowledge or involvement of his family's shady business dealings. Once we determine that, we'll move on.
Well, it does sound personal at that. We'll see how the year goes on. Congressman Comer, Republican from Kentucky, really appreciate you coming on and sharing your perspective with us. Thank you.
His perspective is he really wants to see Hunter Biden's dick. It is all about some Hunter Biden dick fetish. Representative Nancy Mace says she might not sign on to the rules package that was negotiated by Representative Matt Gaetz. We're going to hear from Gaetz after this. Do keep these fuckers in mind. I want to know who the chat thinks is the least likable of all the Republicans we're getting ready to hear from. This is Representative Nancy Mace.
Good morning and welcome.
Good morning.
To the Nation. It was early yesterday morning when Kevin McCarthy finally secured enough Republican votes to give him the gavel.
God, it was Saturday morning, wasn't it?
I never thought we'd get up here.
That latter sentiment was felt by many Americans after watching the proceedings drag on for days.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm?
Congress was finally sworn in and they are officially on the job. But the challenge is
Devil in at 8 o'clock tomorrow night.
McCarthy, who was forced to make concessions to a small group of holdout conservatives in order to win their support. Will he live to regret what he agreed to? We begin with one of the Republican members of Congress who was with Speaker McCarthy on all votes. That's Nancy Mace of South Carolina. Good morning to you, Congresswoman. Welcome back.
Good morning. Thank you.
Again and again, 14 times, the hard-right faction of your party refused to vote for Kevin McCarthy, even after he was making repeated concessions to them. How can Republicans possibly govern when your party is so unruly?
Unruly.
Well, first of
I
all,
like
I wanna
unruly.
say, number one,
He's
Kevin
kicking authority in the
McCarthy
balls.
is the only member that I know of that could bring all the different groups together within our own party, because we do have different factions just like Democrats do, and that's the first thing. And then the second thing is that sometimes democracy is messy. It looked kind of like an unnecessary and prolonged food fight last week, and I agreed with many Americans who thought that. I came home this weekend and listened to folks of all sides. I represent a very purple district. I have all sides to serve, and there was a lot of frustration with the prolonged and unnecessary food fight that we had this week. But you saw democracy on full display, and I think that's healthy to have that kind of debate. I'm glad that it's over and we can move forward.
Well, I mean, some would say it wasn't so much democracy as it was dysfunction. The Wall Street Journal editorial page was pretty scathing. It said, "Don't believe the happy talk. This was a healthy display of deliberative democracy." It was a power play. A group of backbenchers
It was indeed a power play.
to exploit the narrow GOP margin of 5 seats to put themselves in positions of power that they hadn't earned through seniority or influence with colleagues.
Yep.
If this
That's
rules package passes with all the concessions that Speaker McCarthy made, this will leave you beholden, won't it, to those backbenchers?
Well, there are a couple of things I want to say on the rules package, the rules that will govern the way the House operates.
Nancy Mace gets points for not being Nancy Grace.
Like the 72-hour rule, having 3 days to read a bill before it comes to the floor for a vote, having a path to balance the budget over the next 10 years, ensuring that they're spending offsets, especially with mandatory spending. If you're going to increase in one area, then you have to decrease in another.
You live
but
in
I will
sexual
tell you,
anarchy?
When I ran for Congress 2 years ago, I won by 1 point, and I ran to be a new Nancy in the House. And what I saw last week,
A new Nancy in the House.
of the 20 who are acting just like the old Nancy, trying to cut backroom deals in private and secret without anyone knowing what else was going on. And when they did the rules package at the end of the day, there was only 1 point that was changed, and that was on the motion to vacate. That was the only difference in the package that we're going to be voting on tomorrow. That was different
I got a
from the
package
original
for you.
package that was proposed. So my question really is today is what backroom deals were cut? Did they try to cut? And did they get those? Because we shouldn't be operating like Nancy Pelosi, this small faction. And they're the ones that are saying they were quote, fighting the swamp, but then
Want me to spin around?
and tried to act like, like they actually are the swamp by trying to do these backroom deals. And we don't know what they got or didn't get. We haven't seen it. We don't have any idea what promises were made or what gentlemen's handshakes were made. We just have no idea at this point. And it does give me quite a bit of heartburn because that's not what we ran on.
So, Speaker,
it's quite ironic.
Well, so you are saying Speaker McCarthy is not being transparent.
We're supposed to be woke around here.
In order to win.
We're supposed to be
job.
woke. We should not be commenting on this Congress lady's looks.
Up yours, woke moralists. We'll see who cancels who.
It would be like a Jordan Peterson type thing to do.
I'm saying there's a small handful of individuals in that 20 who were trying to cut deals in secret.
Didn't
and
they
not
succeed
let
in doing
anybody else
that?
know about them. We're not sure.
No, it's all good, War
at this
Machine.
point. And that does give me pause and gives me significant heartburn on what direction we're going to take. I represent a purple district. I have to represent
Gives her
Republicans,
heartburn.
Democrats, and independents. I want to know that the positions that I have are going to have a voice. That it will have weight in the conference. There are a lot of members like me that have issues with some of the policies that we're going to be working on. Look at what happened after overturning of Roe v. Wade. We didn't have a plan. And I want, as a woman and as a victim of rape, want to know that we're going to be serious, that we're going to be balanced in protecting the rights of women and protecting the rights of the unborn. There's a way to do it both and not be guided by one extreme or the other.
Well, I just want to clarify there because I had asked you initially about the rules package, which is published and would be voted on tomorrow.
Right.
Are you saying that you're going to withhold your vote on those published agreements until you know what these backroom deals were?
I am considering that as an option right now. I like the rules package. It is the most open, fair, and fiscally conservative package we've had in 30 years. I support it. But what I don't support is a small number of people trying to get a deal done or deals done for themselves in private, in secret, to get a vote or a vote present. I don't.
He's looking at
support
Nancy
that.
Mace.
That's what Nancy Pelosi does, and that's not what they should be doing. And so I am on the fence right now about the rules package vote tomorrow for that reason.
Got it. It reportedly includes a pledge that would likely require a $75 billion cut to national security funding. Do you support that part of it?
I want to see it in writing. I want to see what promises were made. And what we are being told is that these handshakes, what's going on, these promises will go through regular order and go through the regular appropriations process.
Tones, good evening.
Defense cuts. Again, we don't know what deals were made, and that's something that we should be transparent about. Sunshine is the best medicine. That's what we've always said. So what are we guaranteeing, or what promises were made? We should know.
The Speaker has reportedly given the Freedom Caucus, that ultra
Freedom Cock
faction, a third of the seats on the powerful Rules Committee, which controls which bills make it to the floor. You've called Matt Gaetz, one of its members, a political D-lister and a fraud. You've sparred with Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'll show our viewers part of that and let them interpret your meaning. How are you going to work?
This is indeed what batshit crazy
get
looks
anything
like.
done for the American people?
It's going to be very difficult. Matt Gaetz is a fraud. Every time he voted against Kevin McCarthy last week, he sent out a fundraising email. What you saw last week was a constitutional process diminished by those kinds of political actions. I don't support that kind of behavior. I am very concerned.
You could have added several to that list, Lady B. Not to pick on you, though.
And Democrats, as I have Republicans in my district, I have to represent everybody. I am concerned that common sense legislation will not get through to get a vote on the floor. And for example, we have 12 bills that we're supposedly going to be voting on in our first week in office. 3 of them are abortion bills and pro-life bills. I am pro-life, but I have many exceptions. But they are not pieces of legislation that can pass the Senate and get onto the desk for the president to sign into law. And so if we're going to be serious about protecting life, for example, maybe we should look at more centrist views like ensuring every woman has access to birth control. Because if you can reduce pregnancies, you can reduce the need or want for women.
Gomered as well.
A very common sense
All goes are.
point of view. But that's not what we're going to be voting on.
Santos.
And I am concerned. I want to see pragmatics at work, common sense, fiscal conservative issues at work that represent all views.
Before I let you go, I have to ask you, you have a new colleague from the state of New York, Representative George Santos. He says he's embellished his resume. You could say he just flat out
Embellished?
Work history, education, family background. How can you work with someone like that, and does he need to be removed from office?
It's very difficult to work with anyone who cannot be trusted, and it's very clear his entire resume in life was manufactured until a couple days ago when he finally changed his website. It is a problem. If we say we can't trust the left when they aren't telling the truth, how can we trust around? Americans want transparency. And the one lesson I've learned in D.C., if you want a friend you can trust, get a dog. So.
I understand you are a dog fan. All right, Congresswoman.
Fair enough. I mean, that's something I can agree with her on. We can find common ground with dog lovers, possibly. She was talking about one Representative Matt Gaetz, who I believe won our poll, or is so far in the lead with 67% of the vote on who is the biggest GOP uneducated banana skin. Matt Gaetz did indeed win. I voted for Speaker McCarthy. Matt Gaetz won. Matt Gaetz on Fox News this morning.
First time since Kevin McCarthy won the Speaker's gavel in a chaotic late-night vote following days of negotiations and concessions. Alexandria Hoff is live with more. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Mike. Yeah, tomorrow is going to be a test on how well the Republican majority can work together moving forward. A vote is scheduled on the new rules package. Congressman Jim Jordan saying today on Fox News Sunday that he believes it will pass, adding that the dramatic differences that played out during this eventually 5-day-long Speaker vote has only strengthened the party.
So sometimes democracy is messy, but I would argue that's exactly how the founders intended it. They wanted real debate, real input from all people.
Republican Congressman Tony Gonzalez
fuck Jim Jordan
will not be supporting the rules package. This is due to
Jim Jordan could have been on there.
House Speaker Kevin McCarthy with Freedom Caucus members who had vowed to
The
block
Freedom Cauc.
if he did not give in to demands. Those concessions include a cap on discretionary spending, 3 seats on the Rules Committee for Freedom Caucus members, and the ability to more easily oust McCarthy. House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries feels a small group of Republicans have been given too much power.
While the Congress was held captive this particular time, what is going to be a problem is if the American people will be held captive over the next 2 years to the extreme MAGA Republican agenda that apparently has been negotiated into the House rules and the functioning of the Congress. That's going to undermine the health, the safety, and the well-being of the American people.
Now, House Republicans as a whole do have ambitious plans moving ahead as they promise to quickly launch investigations into areas such as the Justice Department, the southern border, COVID-19, the Afghanistan withdrawal, and the business.
Biden at the southern border tonight.
Alexandria Hoff live here in Washington. Alex, many thanks. For more on those discussions, I am joined here in studio by Florida Republican Congressman and member of the House Armed Services and Judiciary Committee.
God damn, he's ugly.
Welcome, Congressman. Great to have you. Good to be with you. So is it worth it all going 15 rounds to elect a speaker?
Absolutely. We got concessions that really were being rejected as early as Monday when it comes to being able to read legislation 72 hours before its adoption, individual appropriations bills, and ultimately what we negotiated ensures that we will never again have a circumstance like this omnibus spending legislation because bills will have to comport to a single subject. There will be germanity requirements on amendments, and so it's going to be an open process, a transparent process. I'm thrilled at where the House of Representatives is today.
You were quoted as saying the construct of these rules concessions functionally turn the speakership into a ceremonial position. Do you mean that?
Yeah.
Well, Speaker McCarthy is our speaker, and long live the speaker. I look forward to working closely with him, but he did agree, to his great credit, to democratize power to the membership. Oftentimes, these committees...
Sir, we're not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic.
Paradigm is they're controlled just by people loyal to the speaker. Now what we have is a real representation of all of the different viewpoints within our conference.
I think that's why he scrunched up his face like that at the beginning, to make himself look like butthead.
Conservatives on those committees, to have our budget hawks on appropriations, and I can't wait to see what we're able to do when we unlock the potential of all of our members going forward.
What about the concern that this delayed process weakened him? And to recap, we've got a Democrat in the White House. We've got Democrats
Guys, I gotta get rid of the kid.
Senate. Don't you need him to be as strong as possible?
Well, I think the way to have a strong Republican position on a lot of these issues is to have strong Republicans on the most relevant committees. And I don't really get the critique that taking from Tuesday to Friday to work this out puts the Republican majority in peril. I mean, you know, Mike, that in the summer, the entire Congress takes like 6 weeks off where we're not even around at all. So to take 4 days
in the summer,
second in line to the presidency, and to ensure that we have a House of Representatives that is a fighting force going to check the Biden administration, absolutely worth it.
Up next is the rules package, the governing rules for the next 2 years in the House of Representatives.
He's asking Matt Gaetz about his package.
I think this is an exquisite rules package. And, you know, members of Congress...
Matt Gaetz has an exquisite package.
And move on to other things. But oftentimes, when you make the rules better, you can actually improve the health of the institution long term. Some of these rules will allow us to zero in on specific elements of federal spending and force votes on whether or not that is an appropriate use of tax dollars. Also baked into these rules we're going to vote on a church-style commission to evaluate the weaponization of this government against our people. That's the FBI, the DOJ, but even other entities that we see abusing their power to the detriment.
Why they investigate us Republicans doing crimes.
More staff, more resources, and we're going to get
Justin, good evening.
There was a tense moment late night Friday night when Congressman Mike Rogers, expected to be the next chairman of House Armed Services, confronted you. You guys both serve on the Armed Services Committee. What was that all about, and are you guys going to be able to work together on armed services?
Well, Mike Rogers is going to be a terrific chairman of the Armed Services Committee, and we share a deep commitment to our national defense, to our men and women in uniform, and of course, in a late-night moment of high drama, people can have moments of frustration, but Mike Rogers and I have a 6-year productive working relationship. We're going to work together wonderfully going forward, and I don't think there should be any punishment or reprisal just because he had an animated moment. He has my forgiveness, and certainly is someone who's done great things for our national defense and will continue to do those great things.
Yeah, he totally didn't log it in, Mox.
Like the fight that you led this week, you've also taken some criticism. Some people saying this is about fundraising, this is about more media appearances. Do you consider yourself a serious legislator?
Well, absolutely. I mean, one of the reasons we fought for these rules was to ensure that all members of Congress can get involved in the legislative process at a more granular level. For far too many years under both Republican and Democrat control, power has been centralized in a select few, and that's not good for the Republic. I am not one that's really dearth for a lot of media appearances. I think I'm someone who appears on your network and others more than any other member of Congress, so it's an odd criticism to say that I'm doing this for media hits when I do a lot of those anyway. And even before this episode, I was one of the top fundraisers in Congress, despite the fact that I'm one of the only Republicans in Congress who doesn't accept any lobbyist money or any political action committee donations, because I believe our politics is most pure when it is funded by the people of our country, not those who are paid to try to influence outcomes.
So you're for public financing?
Great to have you, and we'll be tracking the 118th.
Man, who tells Matt Gaetz it's great to have him? What are you smoking, dude? I want some of it.
I was on crack.
Right. Well,